Laura Knight's Cassiopeian experiments, often associated with the Cassiopeia material, involves the exploration of consciousness, spirituality, and the nature of reality. Through various methodologies, including channeling and psychic experiments, Knight and her collaborators sought to communicate with higher intelligences, particularly a group of entities referred to as the Cassiopeians. The primary aim was to gain insight into the metaphysical questions, the nature of existence, and human development. The experiments included multi-session discussions that cover topics like multidimensional realities, free will, and the influence of higher dimensional beings on humanity. Knight recorded these sessions, which often contained profound philosophical and esoteric insights, and these records became part of a larger body of work that aimed to explore consciousness beyond conventional scientific understanding. The overall tone of the experiments reflect a blend of skepticism and deep inquiry into the nature of consciousness and our place in the universe. Laura Knight began her communication with the Cassiopeians in 1994. She is still in communication with the Cassiopeians to this day. If you would like a better understanding of the Cassiopeians and their impact on humanity, I would highly suggest checking out the Wave series by Laura Knight, the Cassiopeian Forum, which a link will be provided in the description box below, or purchasing the book that I personally am reading from that contains all of the transcripts and conversations between Laura and the Cassiopeians. The Cassiopeians base the soul's evolution and consciousness on the spiritual template known as the Law of One. The Law of One is also known as the raw material. It is a series of philosophical texts that emerged from a series of channeling sessions conducted by Carla Rucker, Don Elkins, and Jim McCarthy in the early 1980s. The sessions involved channeling a consciousness known as Ra, who claimed to be a collective of extraterrestrial beings from the sixth density. The key concepts in the Law of One are unity and oneness. The central tenet of the Law of One is that all beings are fundamentally interconnected and are expressions of the same universal consciousness. The phrase, "we are all one," encapsulates this idea, emphasizing that unity is the essence of existence. It also covers the densities of existence. The material describes the cosmos as composed of multiple densities or levels of existence. Each density represents a stage of spiritual evolution, with humans currently experiencing a third density, which is characterized by lessons in love, understanding, and most importantly, making choices. We also seek to understand in the Law of One soul evolution. According to Ra, souls undergo a process of evolution through these densities, learning and growing through various incarnations. The choice between these paths influences one's spiritual evolution and the experiences one encounters in life. There's also discussions of the role of free will. Free will is considered sacred, and individuals are encouraged to explore and make choices regarding their spiritual development without interference from higher beings. If you would like more information on the Law of One, please make sure to check out the material for yourself. A link to all resources will be posted down in the description box below. But for now, let's get on with the show. And before we get into the episode today, guys, I just want to give a great big thank you to all of our patrons and our producers here at Esoteric Atlanta. Without your support, this channel and this work would not be possible. If you would like to help support the channel, there is a link for our Patreon account down in the description box below. Hello, all you cool cats and kittens out there. Welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. I am a little slap happy right now because I have literally been immersed in the Cassiopeians today. Today is my rest day, my 1 day a week I get to rest from my exercise, my practice. And so I have been just going through so many transcripts today, you guys. And yeah, what we are going to do, my friends, is I have decided that I'm going to take some of my old Mystery Mondays and my old deep dives into conspiracies as to how this channel got big. I know you guys like the Mystery Mondays. I do too. And I'm going to be typing some of this information that I've researched in the past into the search engine for the Cassiopeians, because I want to see what the Cassiopeians have to say about everything. So I did that. I typed in the man in the iron mask and bingo, I hit the jackpot. But however, I can't really read that reading until we read the reading before that reading. So we're going to be starting today with the 22nd of October, 1994. And then the direct reading after this will go right into the next reading where we look at the man in the iron mask. Now, again, for those of you who are not familiar, I always play an introduction to the Cassiopeians, but they are a group, of celestial galactic group from Cassiopeia, which is a star constellation that has been in communication with Laura Knight for 31 years. Now, they do go off of the template that is the Law of One, or the raw material, which we have spoken about ad nauseum on this channel. I myself am a student of the Law of One, where basically we are third density, us on planet Earth, we're third density, and we have to make choices between service to self or service to others. And so that is the template that they are taking from. Now, with that being said, I'm not gatekeeping anything. All the links are going to be in the description box below. I highly recommend studying the Law of One. As always, do your own research. Take everything with a grain of salt. I tend to trust the Cassiopeians because they've not really been wrong. And they always respect our free will, and they never interfere with things. And they're kind of snarky sometimes, which I actually like about that. You know, sometimes I think, especially when we're in the spiritual world, we get kind of stuck in like wishful thinking. And sometimes it's not, things that we think are happening to us are actually simpler than we suspect. So like in one reading I was reading, somebody was like, there was a big sound outside of my window last night. I think it was a UFO. What was it? And they were like, thunder. It was thunder. And then one time in one of the readings, the lady was like, I'm not feeling that great. I feel like I'm being spiritually attacked. What's going on? They were like, menopause. So that's what I like about them. They're very much like, chill out. You're in a human body. Things happen. Not everything is a conspiracy against you. Sometimes it just is what it is. And so we're going to start today with the 22nd of October, 1994. And then we're going to get into the next reading for the man in the iron mask. Now, with that being said, all of our past readings will be down in the description box below, so you can go and look through them if you want. But let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Go and pull this sucker up. So this is the 22nd of October, 1994, direct channeling with Frank under hypnosis. Present are Laura, Terry, and Jan. So this is, I believe they're not on the board. They're trying to use Frank under hypnosis. Now, I actually feel kind of bad for Frank. There's a lot of tension between Laura and Frank. I think there's definitely, in my opinion, especially in the early, he's no longer with this group. I think there's a lot of clashing of egos. And so it's just, there's some pettiness, but that's always the case, right? That's always going to happen. But so she writes, this was an experimental session undertaken because Frank kept insisting on trying it this way. See, it's kind of petty. Frank insisted on trying it this way. The information seems to be very good. And I've noted elsewhere that Frank was an extremely talented psychic who could look at your palm, tune into you in some way, and pull out all kinds of astonishingly accurate things. Not because they came to him from some outside source, but because he extracted it in some way from the individual he was channeling for. This session seems to be just an enhanced version of that type of thing. That I was there with the questions and he was somehow extracting this information through me. So as I said, the info seems to be good, though most of it is unverifiable, which I understand as a tactic of negative entities. Give you good info so you get hooked and then slowly twist and transform the message. Yes, yes, yes. We could already see this process in this session. One other thing I can say is that you had to be there to understand why nobody else Nobody else present liked it. It was a certain taste of the tone and attitude of Frank that was extremely unpleasant. We all felt somewhat invaded. Also, noticed the verbosity. We all had a feeling that if this continued, the end result would be a word salad. So there's definitely a lot of tension. And yes, that is true. A lot of times, this is the tactic of negative entities, to give you good and true information, to get you hooked, and then slowly twist and transform the messages. David Wilcock, in my opinion, there are a lot of people in the disclosure community or truther community that start by giving you good information so you trust them, and then they start to twist it. So as always, you guys, take everything with a grain of salt. I am just like you guys. We're all trying to find the truth. I find the Cassiopeia material to be helpful and entertaining. So that is why I'm bringing it to my channel to share it with you guys. But as always, do your own research. So normally when they talk to the Cassiopeians, they're using a board to talk to them. So obviously, though this is different, he's being channeled. Interesting, he's under hypnosis too. I'm Rh negative. And apparently Rh negatives cannot be hypnotized. Isn't that fascinating? So I guess Frankie Poo is not Rh negative. All right, Laura, who is with us? Induanda and Alora, I love their names. That two energy sources are named is interesting. So she's already kind of dubious of Frank, even though from what I understand, he seems to be the more powerful channel out of the both of them. But of course, this is not coming from the board. This is just coming from the hypnosis of Frank. Laura, what is the significance of the earthquake that occurred a few months back? That was the super deep earthquake that was 400 miles deep. Hey, Todd, can you shut the door? Robbie just opened it. Yeah, no. Sorry, guys. My dog hates when the door is shut, and I didn't have it shut all the way, and he just like came in, and I don't know if you heard it. He like popped the door open, looked at me, and then walked off. So hold on one second, guys. All right, guys, we're back. Sorry about that. So let me rephrase that question. Let's do this again. Question, Laura, what is the significance of the earthquake that occurred a few months ago that was called the super deep earthquake that was 400 miles deep? So again, this was back in 1994. A magnum shift caused by gradual heating from within, just part of the periodic cycle. So I don't remember. Obviously, I was 11, so I was not interested. I think I was more interested in what Jonathan Taylor Thomas was up to when I was 11 than what was going on with earthquakes around the world. So if you guys remember this, let me know in the comment section. Any other comments on that? No. We would like to have comments on the thumping noise reportedly heard off the coast of California. Expansion of a base. What kind of base? It's a transfer center for those beings known as the Greys. What was the thumping? They are expanding it. Is it construction work? Yes, except that they are using sound waves to disintegrate rock in the crust under the ocean. This disintegration causes the atomic structure of the particles being disintegrated to completely disappear, which has something to do with why those sounds are heard in that particular rhythm. So let me know, guys, if you lived in California. I don't know where in California. California is a big state. Obviously, I lived in California in the 2000s, but not in 1994. So please let me know, guys, if you lived in California at this time and you remember hearing thumping sounds, let me know. Any other comments? There is some awareness on the part of the U.S. government as to what is going on. They are suspicious. I think they're more than suspicious. Question, Laura, what was the source of the knowledge assessed by Edgar Cayce? Well, he had a unique biochemical composition which allowed for easy opening and closing of his consciousness from outside sources without interference with his electromagnetic flow stream. It is a very unique and unusual situation. The first manifestation of this is when he asked for help. If he had not asked for help from a higher source, possibly his awareness of his abilities would have never come forth. That's interesting. So obviously, I know this probably goes without saying, because I know most of you guys do know who Edgar Cayce was, but I've been made aware that some people don't know who these people are. So we're going to just pull up again. Guys, we're going to look at Wikipedia. I know Wikipedia is not the most reliable source on the internet, but it's okay for what we're doing, for a brief Cliff Notes version of who Edgar Cayce was. So Edgar Cayce Born March 18th, 1877, left the earth on January 3rd, 1945, was an American clairvoyant who claimed to diagnose diseases and recommended treatments for ailments while asleep. During thousands of transcribed sessions, Cayce would answer questions on a variety of subjects such as healing, reincarnation, dreams, the afterlife, past lives, nutrition, Atlantis, and future events. Cayce described himself as a devout Christian and denied being a spiritualist or communicating with spirits. Cayce is regarded as the founder and principal source of many characteristics and beliefs of the New Age movement. You guys, if you've been here for a while, know that this term, New Age, is a three-letter agency word. Nobody who's in this field calls it that. That is definitely coming from the three-letter agency to try to discredit all of this work. As a clairvoyant, Cayce collaborated with a variety of individuals, including osteopath Al Lane, homeopath Wesley Ketchum, printer Arthur Lammers, and Wall Street broker Morton Blumenthal. In 1931, Cayce founded a nonprofit organization, the Association for Research and Enlightenment. In 1942, a popular and highly sympathetic biography of Cayce titled There is a River was published by journalist Thomas Segru. So I'm not going to go through everything else, but I have read a lot of Cayce's work. He definitely was not a person who, I think Cayce definitely lived a life where he was almost even unsure of his own abilities too. And he would like go in this trance sleep and give people reasons as to why they had health problems. Mostly it was karmic. And so Cayce was very instrumental in a lot of where we are now. It was during a time of spiritualism, obviously, even though he didn't consider himself to be a spiritualist. But I think that was more his own internal struggles. So he's very famous. He's a very, very famous clairvoyant, I guess you can say, obviously no longer with us. So there's that. If you've never heard of Edgar Cayce, there are so many books by him. He's a fascinating, fascinating study. I've thought about covering him on this channel before, but there's just so much to it. But anyway, what is the source of Lama Sin's knowledge? I hope I'm saying that right. Lama Sin has studied long and hard in metaphysical fields through meditation and other areas, and therefore a doorway or channel can be opened voluntarily. This requires the cooperation of the host and is not as easily opened or closed as it was in the case of Cayce. So let's look, because I'm not familiar with this person. So let's look this person up. Here we go. I have to sign out, guys, just to make sure it pulls up. Let's see here. Alrighty. Okay, here we go. Let's just look and see what the Google machine, Dr. Google, has to say. It's, again, we're very distrustful of Google in a lot of ways, but I think for now, for what we're doing now, this will suffice. Let's look at Wikipedia. Okay, so he was born the 15th of June, 1939. I guess he's still alive. Let's see. Gadul Singh Lama, reportedly known as Sanu Lama, is an Indian fictional writer, poet, and translator. That's interesting because I've spent a lot of time in India and I've never heard of him, but he seems to be more in the Nepal region. He was an engineer by profession. He has published 3 short stories, anthologies, and his stories have been translated into English, Hindi, Urdu, Assami. Fascinating. And again, I've spent a lot of time in India and I'm not familiar with this guy. But needless to say, not really something we're looking at in traditional yoga. So nonetheless, let me know what you know about this guy down in the description box or down in the comment section below. So in terms of access level, which one of the two had access to the greatest fields of subject or information? Actually, Cayce was assessing a somewhat different source, but the overall accuracy level and the overall intensity level were greater with Cayce. Okay, question. In terms of relationships relative to the Cassiopeian level of knowledge, how would Cayce and Lama Sin relate? The access level is much greater and broader. Question, Laura, when and how did planet Earth acquire its moon? Answer, was caused by the regular passage of a large comet cluster which caused a gravitational disruption, allowing a large chunk of the original Earth's surface, which was somewhat less solid at the point of space-time, to break away from the main body and assume a locked-in orbit around the main body. Question, when did this happen? Answer, it occurred approximately 3 billion years ago. Question, Laura, can a spiritual being become entrapped in physical matter? Answer, it's possible, but very unlikely. Question, Laura, are human beings entrapped in physical matter? Answer, by choice. Question, Laura, why did they make this choice? Answer, to experience physical sensations. It was a group mind decision. I definitely agree with that, actually. According to the Law of One, according to the Yoga Vedas text, according to the Emerald Tablets, we're the cause that had the effect of matter. Our consciousness knew itself, and by knowing itself and creating self-awareness, a Shakti was created, the matter was created. And so we go through the ride of physical separateness in these bodies in order to find what we lost when we had the original thought, if that makes sense. So again, this is deep philosophy, you guys, which is obviously what I've been studying for 19 years. So I would definitely suggest researching that for yourself. So question, Laura, why did they make this choice to experience physical sensations? It was a group mind decision. Again, I almost forgot, one of my favorite things that come from the Emerald Tablets is when thought says, right now, you only know life because you know death. When you are just in spirit form, you don't know life because you don't know death. And so creation only happens when we're in physical form, because we actually understand the duality of mortality. Okay? Who is in charge of the groups? The group. Does the interactions between the spirit soul and the body physical produce some byproducts that is desirable to other beings? Well, all things have desirable consequences as well as undesirable consequences, but it must also be mentioned here that everything that exists in all realms of the universe can experience existence in one of only two ways. That would be defined as a long wave cycle and a short wave cycle. Going back to your previous question about why human beings are entrapped in physical existence, which of course is voluntary and chosen. This was due to the desire to change from the long wave cycle experience of completely what you would call ethereal or spiritual existence to the short wave cycle of what you would call physical existence. The difference is that a long wave cycle involves only very gradual change in evolution in a cyclical manner, whereas a short wave cycle involves a duality. And this is the case with souls in physical bodies, as is experienced on this earth plane, because the soul experiences an ethereal state for half the cycle and the physical state for the other half of the cycle. While these halves are not measured in time the way you measure time, the totality of experience is equal in each half. The necessity to form the shortwave cycle was brought about through nature, through the natural bounds of the universe, when the group mind of souls chose to experience physicality as opposed to complete etherical existence. Kind of what I was just saying in a roundabout way with the Law of One. You only know life because you know death. That's basically what he's saying. So we wanted to experience the sensation of being in a body, of being in a nervous system, of feeling the friction. So we came into physical matter when physical matter is not our actual home, you know? And so we come into these bodies. That's why the second chakra, which is the chakra of creation, is down in the lower part of the belly, which is the humanity of it's not up, creation is not up in the etherical spiritual chakras. It's down in the lower ones, because creation is part of you being human, not a part of you being spirit. So that's kind of what I think he's saying, right? Laura, does this interaction produce a byproduct? Answer, it produces equal byproducts of a positive and negative nature. Laura, what are these byproducts? Answer, which one first? Question, Laura, positive. Answer, positive byproducts is an increase in relative energy which speeds up the learning process of the soul in all of its one-dimensional and two-dimensional interactive partners. In other words, flora and fauna, minerals, etc. all experience growth and movement towards reunion at a faster rate on the cycle through this short wave cycle, physical, etherical transfer. Of a negative nature, it also produces many negative experiences for these very same entities, which otherwise would not exist because of being of a first level and second level nature. Flora and fauna would ordinarily experience a long-term or long wave cycle on the physical plane, as opposed to a short wave cycle, physical and ethereal, as they do now because of their interactions with the human species in its short wave etherical physical cycle. Question, Laura, The comment was made at one point that certain alien beings abduct humans and subject them to cruel and torturous unaliving in order to create maximum energy transfer. In this respect, what is the maximum energy transfer that occurs during a long, slow, torturous unaliving process? Answer: extreme fear and anxiety builds up fear, anxiety energy, which is of a negative nature, which fuels the beings that you speak of, in that they draw from that and produce a sort of fueling energy, which keeps them going as one of their forms of nourishment based on their metabolic structure. Question, Laura, what is their metabolic structure? Answer: this is very complex and very difficult to describe because it is on the fourth level of density, which you do not understand. This is correct. But part of their reason for existence on the fourth level is their ability to nourish themselves both through ethereal methods and through physical methods. Therefore, this energy transfer would represent the ethereal method of nourishment, and other means are achieved physically. Let's keep going, and we're going to pause on this for a sec because this is correct according to the law of one. Question, Laura, what other means? Answer: well, the drinking of BLOOD and BLOOD byproducts would be an example of that. Question, Laura, do they do that? Yes, but the manner of intake is different than what you may be thinking. It's done through pores. In what? That's correct too. In what manner? Bathing and then absorbing the necessary products and then disposing of the remaining products. Okay, let's pause on this for a second. So we are in third density. We take in nourishment through eating and drinking through our mouths. We physically take the food and the liquid and put it into our bodies. Our body breaks down the compounds, takes the nutrients, takes the minerals, takes the H2O from the water compound, puts it into our DNA, and everything that's not needed after that nourishment is taken comes through. We eliminate it. Yeah? In fourth density, so we're third density. In fourth density, both positive and negative, they do not, from what I understand from the law of one, they do not take in nourishment through their mouth. So we will not, in fourth density, we will not actually be eating food. So if you're all excited about ascending, but you love your food, take a step and just enjoy being here on planet Earth, because you will not actually physically be eating food the way that we eat food. So they take in nourishment through osmosis of their pores. Now, what he's talking about here is the fourth density negative. So let's put fourth density positive to the side for now. Fourth density positive also takes in nourishment through osmosis of the pores, but we're not talking about them because they're taking in nourishment from two different reasons. Now, it gets into the law of one. So if a fourth density entity wants to materialize on a third density plane, that is when that third density entity needs to actually take in BLOOD. All right? Or a form of gold. There's a form of gold they can eat that will allow them to materialize in third density because their natural state is fourth density. So that is why we see that is when they physically will drink BLOOD, or they'll eat gold to physically materialize. Now, with that being said, they can't even physically materialize for that long because it's not their density. So most of the time when we're interacting with fourth density negative beings, because the positive beings don't interact with us unless we ask them to, it's on an etherical level, like we feel their presence, but we can't see them because they're in a different density. They can see us, we can't see them. Does that make sense? So what Frank is saying here does match what the law of one says. And I know they were just beginning this and they were just starting to look at the law of one, so Laura might be a little confused about all this, but this is actually in the law of one. Did Arthur Clarke channel childhoods in? No, used imagination. Let's look him up, you guys. Let's see who this guy, I don't know who this guy is. Let's look him up. Let's look him up. So, let's see here. Okay. Again, let's look at Wikipedia. Let's just see what Wikipedia has to say about these people, just to give us a brief overview so we know exactly what the C's are talking about. I hope you guys can see the Wikipedia page. It might have just pulled my Zoom page up, but let me know. I hopefully this is okay. So Sir Arthur Charles Clarke was born on the 16th of December, 1917, and left the Earth on the 19th of March, 2008, was an English science fiction writer, science writer, futurist, inventor, undersea explorer, and television series host. So let us know, guys, in the UK. He co-wrote the screenplay for the 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey, widely regarded as one of the most influential films of all time. Clarke was a science fiction writer and an avid popularizer of space travel and a futuristic of distinguished ability. He wrote many books and many essays for popular magazines. In 1961, he received the Caligula Prize. He was a lifelong proponent of space travel. In 1934, while still a teenager, he joined the British Interplanetary Society. In 1945, he proposed a satellite communication system using geostationary orbits. He was the chairman of the British Interplanetary Society from 1946 to 1947, and again, 1951 to 1953. Okay, he moved to Sri Lanka in 1956 to pursue his interest in scuba diving. That year, he discovered underwater ruins of the ancient. That's interesting. We might have to look more into this. Clarke augmented his popularity in the 1980s as the host of the television show such as Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. He lived in Sri Lanka until he left the Earth. He was appointed commander of the Order of the British Empire in 1989 for the services to British cultural interest in Sri Lanka. He was knighted in 1998 and was awarded Sri Lanka's highest civil honor in 2005. So I guess they're asking the information that he seemed to receive to write his book. Ooh, hold on one second. Let me actually look at the book before we actually get back to the page, guys. Childhood's End. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm not familiar with this, you guys. Again, I'm not British, and I am not, this is not my age group. I was born in 1983. So let's see, Childhood's End. Let's just kind of see what this is about. Childhood's End is a 1953 science fiction novel by the British author Arthur C. Clarke. The story follows the peaceful alien invasion on Earth by the mysterious overlords, whose arrival begins decades of apparent utopia under indirect alien rule at the cost of human identity and culture. Interesting. Clarke's idea for the book began with his short story, Guardian Angel, published in New Worlds #8, winter of 1950, which he expanded into a novel in 1952, incorporating it as the first part of the book, Earth and the Overlords. Completed and published in 1953, Childhood's End sold out its first printing, received good reviews, and became Clarke's first successful novel. The book is often regarded by both readers and critics as Clarke's best novel and is described as a classic of alien literature. Along with The Songs of Distant Earth, Clarke considered Childhood's End to be one of his favorite of his own novels. The novel was nominated for the Retro Hugo Award for Best Novel in 2004. Several attempts to adapt the novel into a film or miniseries have been made with varying levels of success. Director Stanley Kubrick, that's interesting, expressed interest in the 1960s, but collaborated with Clarke on 2001: A Space Odyssey, 1968 instead. The novel's theme of transcendent evolution also appears in Clarke's Space Odyssey series. In 1997, the BBC produced a 2-hour radio dramatization of Childhood's End that was adapted by Tony Mulholland. All right, so plot summary. Let's just kind of look at the plot summary briefly. In the late 20th century, the United States and the Soviet Union are competing to launch the first spacecraft into orbit when alien spaceships suddenly position themselves above Earth's principal cities. After 1 week, the aliens announce they are assuming supervision of international affairs to prevent humanity's extinction. They become known as the Overlords. In general, They let humans go on conducting their affairs in their own way, although some humans are suspicious of the overlord's benign intent, as they never allow themselves to be seen. Let's see here. Okay. The overlords are interested in psychic research, with humans supposed as a part of the anthropological study. Rupert Boyce, a prolific book collector on the subject, allows one overlord to study these books at his home to impress his friends with his presence, this overlord's presence. Boyce holds a party during which he makes use of a Ouija board. Jan Roderick's, an astrophysics, and Rupert's brother-in-law asked the identity of the overlord's home star. The Ouija board reveals a number which Jan recognizes as a star catalog number that learns that it is consistent with the directions in which the overlords supply ships appear and disappear. Jan stows away on an overlord supply ship and travels 40 light years to their home planet. So basically, they're like, how did this guy create this stuff? Which sounds very much like what we know to be not really what's going on, but kind of what's going on. So this is an interesting, I applaud Laura for asking this question. So he used his imagination. So he did not channel anything to get this story. He used his imagination. So my question now, and I don't know about you guys, is like, why was this in his imagination? Stanley Kubrick is quite questionable. So how did he get involved with all these people? Interesting. Question, Laura. Is the amnesia related to UFO abductions deliberately induced, or is it a product of the mind's inability to deal with the event? It is an equal commingling of both. I can agree with that. I think that's logical. Question, Laura. The part that is deliberately induced, how is that accomplished? Answer, by using cosmic energy flow to influence memory function through a combination of spiritual and chemical interactions. Laura, can you be more specific? Answer, being more specific would be in another way less specific, but a good way to put it is altering the flow of electromagnetic energy in the brain. Electromagnetic energy, electromagnetism, is the life force that exists within all that evolves through long waves or short wave cycles. So it's kind of like, I mean, I get that. Like whenever we go through trauma, sometimes our brain blocks it. We know that now. Laura, remember, this is 1994, guys. Question, Laura, going back to the beings that absorb nutrient through their pores, what kind of beings are they? Answer, both those that you described as lizard beings and those you describe as the Greys. This is necessary for their survival in each case, even though the Greys are not naturally part of this shortwave cycle, but rather an artificial creation by the Lizzies, but nevertheless, they mimic the nourishment functions, and we do learn later on that that is true. The Greys are created by the Lizzies to do their dirty work. Question, Laura, since they are artificially created by the Lizzies, does this mean they have no soul? Answer, that's correct. Question, Laura, how do they function? Are they like robots? Answer, they function by interacting with the souls of the Lizzie beings. This technology is extremely far in advance of that which you are familiar, but the Grey beings are not only built and designed artificially, but also function as a projection mentally and physically of the Lizzies. They are like four-dimensional probes. Question, Laura, as four-dimensional probes, what is their capabilities? Answer, they all have the same capabilities of the Lizzies, except for the fact that their physical appearance is entirely different and they do not have souls of their own, and also their biological structure is internally different. But their functioning is the same, and in order to remain as projection beings, they also must absorb nutrients in the same fashion, both spiritually and physically, as the Lizzies do. The reason the negative energy is necessary fuel is that the Lizzies and the Greys are both living in the fourth level of density, which is the highest level of density one can exist in, serving only self as these entities do. That's not necessarily true. We'll talk about it in a minute. So therefore, they must absorb negative energy because the fourth level of density is the highest example of self-service, which is a negative thought pattern. The fourth level of density is a progression from the third level of density. With each progression upward in density level, the existence of the individual consciousness entity becomes less difficult. So therefore, the fourth level of density is less difficult to exist in than that of the third. The third is less difficult than that of the second, and so on. It puts less strain on the soul energy. Therefore, beings existing in the fourth level of density can draw from beings existing on the third level of density in terms of absorption of negative soul energy. Likewise, beings on the third level of density can draw from beings on the second level of density, though this type of drawing is not necessary, but it is done. So like some third level humans eat animals. Those are second density beings. I don't. Some do. This is why, let's see here. Where are we? Okay, here we go. This is why human beings existed on the third level frequency cause pain and suffering to those of the animal kingdom, as I just said, who exist on the second level of density, because you are drawing negative soul energy as beings who primarily serve self as you do from those on the second level and on the first, and so forth. Now, as you advance to the fourth level of density, which is coming up for you, you must now make a choice as to whether to progress to service to others or remain at the same level of service to self. This will be the decision, which will take quite some time for you to adjust to. This is what is referred to as a 1,000-year period. That is the period as measured in your calendar terms that will determine whether or not you will advance to service to others or remain at the level of service to self. And those who are described as Lizzies had chosen to firmly lock themselves into service to self. And since they are at the highest level density where that is possible, they must continually draw large amounts of negative energy from those at that third level, second level, and so on, which is why they do what they do. This also explains why their race is dying, because they have not been able to learn for themselves how to remove themselves from this particular form of expression to that of service to others. And since they have had such, as you would measure it, a long period of time, remained at this level and in fact became firmly entrenched in it, and in fact have increased themselves in it. That is why they are dying and desperately trying to take as much energy from you as possible and also recreate their race metabolically. Kind of true. So there is a fifth level of negative service to self, but if you listen to the interview, actually, let's take this time to take a quick pause so you guys can hear a bit from Todd. Now, we over on the Esoteric Academy have an interview with Todd Roderick where he does go into this, where he talks about how negative beings who are service to self get the most use out of being service to self in fourth density. Fifth density is the last stop. Then after fifth density, the positive and the negative have to merge back together. So just take a moment right now to hear from our sponsor. Thank you to Esoteric Academy for being our sponsor. We're going to play a snippet from our latest interview with Todd Roderick that is now available on the Esoteric Academy. If you would like to join the Esoteric Academy, where you get all these different spiritual exercise classes, courses, meditations, live calls with Paula and myself. A link to that is down in the description box below. You get 7 days of a free trial with this academy. It's a mystery school. And then you have an option of doing $25 a month for all the exercise classes, or for additional $15, which is $40 a month, you get everything. Unlimited to you. All the courses, all the interviews, all the exercise classes, everything. Again, that information is down in the description box below. And let's hear from Todd, and then we'll get back to the show.
Do you think that's really helped you to stay grounded and calm while we've kind of have all of this craziness going on in the world?
Yeah, and how I haven't been caught in this whole thing of, oh, it's a movie just playing out, oh, it's already done, oh, the elite controllers or whatever, they've already surrendered, and we're just have to play this out for the population. It's like bullshit. Like it lacks a foundational understanding of the service to self path. They're never going to give up. Never. Yeah. It's just, and so, understanding these fundamental things about both sides is so important. And that's why the Cassiopeians constantly say, knowledge is going to protect you.
Yes.
It's going to protect you from ways you don't even know and don't even realize. Like, it's going to protect you from believing in lies, because they say that believing in lies is service to self, but also it's soul smashing. It smashes your soul. The more lies you believe in, and the more deeply you you ascribe to those lies, the deeper you believe in those lies, the closer you hold those lies, the more you're smashing your soul. Right. Oh yeah, there was another question down there about selling your soul. That deep.
Yes, I think.
And so I was just touching on that about believing in lies. That's selling your soul when you deeply believe in the lies. That so when you follow the false story, whatever it be, religion or the story of the white hats are saving us, and this is just a movie. That's selling your soul. It's as simple as that. And there's plenty.
But do you think the key is it's okay to kind of explore all these different little avenues and little cul-de-sacs as long as you're not attached to them?
Exactly right. As long as you don't self-identify with it too much, you know, and you'll learn that after with a lot of practice, you'll eventually learn how to do that, and with gathering enough knowledge, and you'll start to understand what the red flags are.
All right, you guys. So, well, if we are sources of food and labor for them, why don't they just breed us in pens on their own planet? Answer, they do. Question, Laura, well, since there's so many of us here, why don't they just move in and take over? Answer, that is their intention. And that is true. That is their intention. That has been their intention for quite some time. They've been traveling back and forth through time as you know it to set things up so they can absorb a maximum amount of negative energy with the transference from third level to fourth level that this planet is going to experience, in the hopes that they can overtake you on the fourth level and thereby accomplish several things. 1, retaining their race as a viable species. 2, increasing their numbers. 3, increasing their power. 4, expanding their race to the realm of fourth density. To all of this, they have been interfering with events for what you would measure on your calendar as approximately 74,000 years, and they have been doing it on a completely still state of space-time, traveling backwards and forwards at will during this work. Interestingly enough, though, all of this will fail. Laura, how can you be so sure it will fail? Answer, because we see it. We are able to see all, not just what we want to see. Their failing is that they see only what they want to see. In other words, it's the highest manifestation possible of that which you would refer to as wishful thinking. Wishful thinking is part of the negative path. It's also a huge downfall of a lot of narcissists. And wishful thinking represented on the fourth level of density becomes reality for that level. You know how you wishfully think. Well, it isn't quite reality for you because you were on the third level. But if you were on the fourth level and you were to perform the same function, it would indeed be your awareness of reality. Therefore, you cannot see what you can see, since we serve others as opposed to self. And since we are on the sixth level, we can see all that it is at all points as is, not as we would want it to be. Zachariah Sitchin proposes that the pyramid was built as a permanent marking system to navigate the solar system. Would you comment on that idea? I'm not going to look him up because we basically see what the point. He obviously has this idea that the pyramid was built as a permanent marking system to navigate the solar system. That's what his thesis is, his theory is. So now they're going to comment on his theory. That is incorrect. The pyramids were built as energy storage and transference facilities. They were built by the descendants of those known to you as the Atlanteans, who were, of course, your ancestors in soul matters. They were not built to be markers for anything. Question, Laura, did any aliens at all, and specifically the Lizzies, ever live among mankind and receive worship? Answer, they did not live among mankind, but they did interact directly with human beings at various points in the past. It was at those points when human beings were ready, willing, and able to accept deities appearing directly from outside sources and then worshipped them. Such things would not have occurred in the recent past, but beware, it may very well occur very soon. Who made the Nazca lines in South America, and what was their purpose? Those were natives living in that area at that particular time who were highly advanced spiritually, and they put those lines there to call to others that they were coming for what they perceived to be the outer space location. Were they the symbols of power in any way? Well, some may have been perceived Well, some may have perceived them as such, but they were mainly an effort to call forth those who had been worshipped and had appeared to them previously from the outside, including not only the Lizzies, but other travelers. Ah, this is interesting. Who built the Angkor Wat? I've been studying Angkor Wat. And everything, every single thing that the historians, the anthropologists think about Angkor Wat is wrong compared to this, which we're finding a lot of what they think is wrong anyway. It was built by the lizard being themselves, built approximately 3,108 years ago. Who built the city of Mohenjo-Daro? That was also built by the lizard beings directly. Did they live in these cities? No. As stated before, they did not live there. They visited or occupied on a temporary basis, but did not live there. Who did they build the cities for? They built the cities for themselves and their worshipers amongst humans. Laura, question. In an earlier reading, the question was asked as to what planet you were from. The response was Corsico. The question was then asked, can you be more specific? The answer was to Diller. Is this the incorrect spelling, or what does it mean? And we talked about that in another reading. Answer, that which you refer to as Corsica is actually not what you refer to as a planet in your understanding, because you must understand that it is the 6th level of density, which is completely out of reach of any of your senses except for the 6th one. Therefore, you do not have any concept of the level of being at this density. So the term planet simply cannot apply there. But that is indeed our residence. But it is best left at that, because to try to explain to you exactly what it is like, there would not be possible for you to imagine. Question, Laura. All right, you mentioned in the earlier reading something about the Denver airport scandal. We've done that too. Recently, it has come to my attention that this is a possible development. Is this scandal going to develop into far worse situation? And if so, what are the ramifications? Again, you guys, I talked about this is 1994. The Denver airport was not opened until 1995. In the very first reading with the C's, the very first time they talked to him, they were like, scandal, scandal, Denver airport, bing, 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 Denver airport. All right. Answer, yes, that will be an ongoing problem to say the least. Question, Laura, are there any rituals that can be performed to provide protection for one against the intrusion by the Lizzies? Rituals are self-defeating. Question, are there any technological means we can use? Answer, the only defense needed is knowledge. Knowledge defends you against every possible form of harm in existence. The more knowledge you have, the less fear you have, the less pain you have, the less stress you feel, the less anguish you feel, the less danger you experience at any form or sort. Think of this very carefully now, for this is very important. Where is there any limitation in the concept behind the word knowledge, being that there is no limitation? What is the value of the word infinite? You can conceive of that in one concept, that one meaning frees you from all limitation. Use your 6th sense to conceive of how the word, the term, the meaning of knowledge can provide with all that you could possibly ever need. If you think carefully, you will begin to see glimpses of how this is true in its greatest possible form. You got to have knowledge. You can't just sit around and wait for these truthers on YouTube to tell you what's going on. You need to do your own research and figure this shit out for yourself, because that is how you're going to have defenses. If you study the law of one, you're going to know who the fake truthers are right away, because you have knowledge. You know how you're being deceived. You know the rules of the game. You know what service to self looks like. You know the rules. You know what manipulation looks like. So therefore, that's a fake truther. They're trying to deceive me. See, I have knowledge now, so I'm not going to smash my soul, sell my soul to some false lie that I've now identified as truth. Okay? Laura, does this include knowledge learned from books? Answer, this includes all possible meanings of the concept of the word. Can you think of how it would be that simply with one term, this one word can carry so much meaning? We sense that you are not completely aware. You can have glimpses of illumination, and illumination comes from knowledge. If you strive perpetually to gain and gather knowledge, you provide yourself with protection from every possible negative occurrence that could ever happen. Do you know why this is? The more knowledge you have, the more awareness you have as to how to protect yourself. Eventually, this awareness becomes so powerful and so all-encompassing that you do not even have to perform task or ritual if you prefer to protect yourself. The protection simply comes naturally with the awareness. Boom, 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 boom. The Yoga Sutras even say this. The Yoga Sutra says, if you understand yourself, if you understand what is going on, the future bad occurrences can be avoided. Does knowledge have a substance or an existence apart from its possession or its acceptance? Knowledge has all substance. It goes to the core of all existence. So acquiring knowledge includes adding substance to one's being? Answer, indeed. It includes adding everything to one's being that is desirable. And also, when you keep invoking the light as you do, truly understand that the light is knowledge. That the knowledge, which is at the core of all existence, and being at the core of all existence, it provides protection from every form of negative existence. Light is everything, and everything is knowledge, and knowledge is everything. You are doing extremely well in a curing of knowledge. Now all you need is the faith and the realization that acquiring of knowledge is all you need. Question, Laura. I just want to be sure that the source that I am acquiring the knowledge from is not a deceptive source. Answer, if you simply have faith, no knowledge that you could possibly acquire could possibly be false, because there is no such thing. Anyone or anything that tries to give you false knowledge, false information, will fail. The very material substance that the knowledge takes on, which is at the root of all existence, will protect you from absorption of false information, which is not knowledge. There is no need to fear the absorption of the false information when you are simply openly seeking to acquire knowledge, and knowledge forms the protection, all the protection you could ever need. Question, Laura. There's an awful lot of people who are being open and trusting and having faith who are getting zapped and knocked on their rears. Answer, no, that is simply your perception. What you are failing to perceive is that these people are not really gathering knowledge. These people are stuck at some point in their pathway to progress. These people are stuck at some point in their pathway to progress, and they are undergoing a hidden manifestation of what is referred to in your terms as obsession. Obsession is not knowledge. Obsession is stagnation. So when one becomes obsessed, one actually closes off the absorption and the growth and the progress of the soul development, which comes with the gaining of true knowledge. For when one becomes obsessed, one deteriorates that protection. Therefore, one is open to problems, to tragedies, to all sorts of difficulties. Therefore, one experiences sane. Powerful, right, guys? That's soul smashing, right? That's being obsessed. The white hats are going to save me. I'm obsessed. I'm going to look and see who's wearing a mask, and it's all just a movie. And we know that's now lacks foundation in truth, but people have become obsessed with them. So they've stopped in their knowledge. They've stopped progressing. They're in stagnation. They're in the junk conspiracy cul-de-sac, spinning circles. They're not progressing. Laura, while we're on the subject of knowledge and experiencing things that may or not be pleasant, I would like to ask for Frank what it is he needs to learn. Answer, he is moving in the right direction at the present time, even though he is not completely aware of that fact. He can appear to be under more stress than he actually is, and also he has an extreme store of innate information, which is one reason why we were able to work through him, because we've opened those channels a long time ago. Interestingly enough, though, you are not aware of it. Your own existence has been influenced by this very factor. Question, Laura, which factor? The natural progression being experienced by the one you know as Frank. Question, in what respect? Answer, you are being driven and you are driving yourself into the right direction because of your interaction with the individual, even though you're not completely aware of the fact that is the fact of what is happening. Question, Laura, What caused Frank to spend so many years interacting with a person such as redacted? That was part of the learning process and also karmic in nature. Karma is your work, it's your learning. And what brought the whole situation to a halt? It was time to end. Question, Laura. During a previous reading, we asked several questions about Jesus of Nazareth, known as the Christ. The question was asked, was Jesus special, that is, Christ in some way? The answer came back, quick, exalted, wars, civil, entrancement, Zinder council. I would like to know the meaning of these references. Quick, exalted refers to a sudden boost of awareness level as related to your previous question about knowledge. Sometimes the acquisition can occur in such a surge, and sometimes that is referred to as an illumination. Jesus acquired his knowledge by having complete faith in his ability to acquire the knowledge from a higher source. This faith caused an equal balancing interaction with the higher source, which allowed him to gain supreme knowledge simply by having that faith. Remember that the resource of this acquisition of knowledge in the space-time are of Christ were much more limited than they are now. There were few options open for acquiring true knowledge except total and complete faith. And this one was instilled with the awareness that total and complete faith would cause dramatic and spectacular acquisition of knowledge, also would cause dramatic and spectacular progression of the soul being. Therefore, the faith was felt, the knowledge was received. What was the source of the knowledge? The source was the 6th level of density, which is where we reside, and the source was the 6th level of density, which is where we reside, and we also were involved in that as well. What does the term civil entrancement mean? Civil entrancement is a complete balancing of one's useful energies to a level where there is no experiencing of overbalancing on the positive or negative side, which is preferable for meditation in mass form. What is the Xander Council? Xander Council is the 6th level density council, which spans both physical and ethereal realms and which oversees dramatic development points at various civilization sectors in lower density levels. I would like you to expound a bit on the life of Christ in terms of chronologically of events. Could you tell us about his understanding about himself, his interaction with higher sources, his state of being christened, and what was the true work he came here to do and how he accomplished it? Answer. His awareness of who and what he was gradually came as he grew. He was taught by us through his faith as described previously. And you should have faith as well, because you would find things would come to you as knowings more often than even now. Jesus' awareness of his mission and his actions pertaining to it were part of the natural progression of his growth and development. The information about his miracles has been largely corrupted by writings which have been passed down after the actual event period. Most of these writings are entities who wish to confuse and corrupt all humanity for previously stated purposes. For the Lizzies, the Bible was corrupted for the Lizzies who take over. We get that. It's pretty obvious if you're able to see the Bible objectively instead of subjectively. The idea was if one perceived Jesus as performing physical miracles, then your entire understanding of what the life experience here on earth and on this plane is, and meaning of it for all, is also corrupted, and the knowledge is blocked, which is the goal of those who have done this. Jesus' purpose and plan was to teach knowledge to all who saw it, but did not have the strength to express it as a great level of faith, as he had to acquire the knowledge as he did from higher sources. If they were open and willing to learn, they would have been taught by hearing. He had only very limited success in imparting faith to others because faith comes solely from within, and that is one of the most difficult things for beings on your planet to acquire. So we know that. We know his whole life was manipulated and changed in order to control us. His job was to teach you how to save yourself. The church came in and said, no, we're the only saviors. The Lizzies are the only saviors for you. So therefore you have to worship us, eat body, drink blood, all that gross stuff. Laura. Now, it has been discussed before that Jesus was probably the product of genetically selected impregnation. Could you comment on this and why this would be? There was no genetic selection of the impregnation. That is incorrect. Okay, then what was it? It was a natural conception. Duh. Well, what I meant was the person who was selected to be the biological father. Well, that is always the case in every single birth that occurs in your level of density. I'm not going to go off on that like I did in the other video. I'll tag that video down below. But duh, all the Christians are like, every life matters. But the minute you say Jesus came here the same way we all came here, they're like, no, he's special. But every life matters. It's such cognitive dissonance. It's unbelievable. Question, Laura, could you comment on the idea that it is implicit in this that Jesus was illegitimate? Answer. Obviously, if one feels that this would put a shadow or a stain on him in some way, or the knowledge that he imparted, then you have not been paying attention. Did you not hear what was said about obsession as opposed to knowledge? Boom. Mic drop. So if you care, if you literally care that he was illegitimate or how he got here, then you're not getting the knowledge. It's going over your head. How he got here really is not important. What is important is the teachings. Those who are truly within themselves at all points of development trying to seek greater knowledge will not be blocked by any ideas relating to illegitimacy as you refer to it. Those who are obsessed by choice rather than trying to seek true knowledge will indeed be blocked at that point. It is all up to the choice of the individual. If you choose to develop and gain knowledge, then you are never blocked or obsessed at any point about anything ever. However, if you choose to limit your knowledge or become obsessed, then you are constantly finding yourself blocked, and this will manifest in all your life experiences. That is part of the individual soul development pattern. It is all based on choice. Therefore, it is not possible for you to interfere with others' choices to acquire knowledge or not, or how it is or how it is not done. There is no need to try to alter another's perception because that would be to interfere with free will. If one chooses to be obsessed rather than to be illuminated, then that is their choice. Question, Laura. We talked about the planet Martek. Is this an ancient human name for Mars, or is it an alien designation? Answer. Combination of both, as were many things at various levels of development of your history. Question, Laura. The remark was made that the planet Earth. Let's do that again. Question, Laura. The remark was made that the planet Earth, prior to its interaction with Martek, had a water vapor canopy. How was this water vapor canopy suspended? The water vapor canopy was a natural element of the particular composition of your atmosphere at the particular measure point in space and time. Was the gravity level the same as it is now? Answer. It was somewhat different, but not perceivable to you. The difference is part of the explanation of why that vapor canopy remained suspended. Question, Laura. Did that condition prior to the flood of Noah, the altered gravitational state, as well as the water vapor canopy, was that the condition more conducive to extended lifespans than the conditions that exist on the planet now? Answer. Not only those things, but all the other conditions that existed on the planet at the particular point in space-time were more conducive to longer lifespans. And by the way, Noah is a symbolic message rather than a historical event. Laura, do you mean a historical event in the terms of Noah being in an ark, or a historical event in the terms of the flood? First of all, there was no Noah. Secondly, there was no actual real flood as depicted in that story. Thirdly, the whole story was a symbolic message as opposed to an actual event. Laura, what did actually occur, and what does the symbolism have to tell us? It is a very broad representation. It simply means that there was a cataclysmic event that did envelop the whole planet at the time, and that those that were ready to experience that as part of their soul development without exiting the body were warned ahead of time. But not by trying to manipulate events, but by simply allowing faith to let them acquire knowledge and being naturally drawn into positions to experience what they needed to experience to survive the event. Question, Laura, at that time, Was Martek drawn close to the Earth, and did it have water on its surface, which the Earth then robbed or borrowed? Answer: that is very close to being the case. So Martek is Mars, I believe. It is far more complicated than that, so we will leave that at this time. Question, Laura, tell me about the Nephilim. Answer: that was part of a race of beings in the third level of density, which came from an actual planet at another point in this particular galaxy, also in the third level of density, who were taken, or shall we say kidnapped, reprogrammed, and retained by the Lizzies to act as enforcers during a particular era of what you would measure as your past. What era was that? Answer: that was an era. It would have been approximately 8 to 5,000 years ago, but there are also dates relating to 12 to 14,000 years ago. Dating systems is not ours and does not exist for us. For how many years did these beings exist on Earth? Approximately 15 to 1800 years. They died off because they were not able to reproduce naturally in the atmosphere of the Earth, and experimentation to try to cause them to intermix with human population did not succeed. When did the last of them die off? Probably near 6 to 7,000 years ago, but there is also a reference point to 12 to 14,000 years as well. What was the name of the planet they came from? Doragla? Where was this planet located? This planet was located in the Orion complex. Question: after the flood of Noah, approximately how many people survived the cataclysm on the whole Earth? Approximately 19 million. Why did the population of the Earth continue to decline from that point? Because of diseases and the inability to adjust due to artificial manipulation of the genetic pool. What did the Tower of Babel look like? Okay, just quickly, I'm going to definitely tag the Nephilim video down below, but we talk a lot about in that video about what the Nephilim are. They're kind of the Gestapo of the establishment and how they are predicted to come back. They're not on the Earth right now, so nobody's a Nephilim right now, but they are predicted to come back in a particular way. I'm not going to give it away, but if you want to watch that video, it's down in the description box below. Okay, so what did the Tower of Babel look like? Looked very similar to your Washington Monument, which recreation is an ongoing replication of soul memory. Question, Laura: would the Great Pyramid in Egypt still work if someone knew how to use it? Answer: it still works today, even though it isn't being artificially used. It was also a preservation chamber. If you were to walk inside the confines of the Great Pyramid and then leave the body, your body will retain its structure for quite some time. This ability to contribute to the preservation of the actual structure. That's also talked about in the Emerald Tablets. What did the original face of the Sphinx look like? Looked like a representation of a feline and a human. Question: at one point in the previous transmission, it was stated that the Lizzies altered the human race after a battle for their own feeding purposes. Could you clarify this? Answer: it was not possible for these beings to completely control your existence. If it were, you would not be able to do the things your race has done. There has been an interference by the Lizzies in the physical structure of the human being for their own benefit. Remember what we told you before. They have been interfering with the time cycle experience on this plane for quite some time as you measure it. For 74,000 years, they have been interfering in a backwards and forwards time reference manager in order to set up circumstances that they perceive to be beneficial for them and the measure of time that you would consider to be forward, that is, in the future. They have been going backwards and forwards in time to do this. They are suspended in the time cycles as they do this. So what they perceive as being your equivalent of 1 hour could be as long as 74,000 years. So they haven't been here for 300,000 years. They originally set up circumstances for their benefit 309,000 years ago. However, they have been using the particular bracketed period of 74,000 year period alter things in the various ways mentioned earlier. Question, Laura: now you mentioned the creatures of your group as the super ancient ancestors called the transient passengers. What is the meaning of this term and who are these beings? Answer: transient passengers are not beings. Transient passengers are unified thought form. Why are they called transient passengers? Because they transist all forms of reality, and they spring forth from the united form of existence. Question, Laura. The planet that was destroyed between Jupiter and Mars, that we now know as the asteroid belt, you said it was destroyed by psychic energy. Could you clarify that? Answer. The occupants of that planet, many of whom are your soul ancestors, simply decided to develop a service to self atmosphere that was so supercharged in the negative that it actually caused their home planet to be destroyed because the energy levels became so intense, crashing back upon themselves, that they actually destroyed the atomic structure of the planet, causing it to physically implode. Question, Laura, was this done technologically, or was it strictly done by mind power? They are one and the same. Did they do something like drop a bomb? No. This was done by psychic energy. There has been, in the transient fashion of reality, the dangers of the same thing happening on your planet, although we were quite confident that it won't, because we see all reality, past, present, and future. But you must understand also that even in our own particular perspective point, all reality is nonetheless fluid. There are still many choices of realities, impossible futures, impossible past, impossible presents. But we feel fairly confident that the particular fate will not befall your planet, although it did the one then known as Cayce. Question, Laura. On a couple of occasions, it has been mentioned that Yasser Arafat was the fifth density soul and that he was the descendant of Jesus of Nazareth. What is there about him that demonstrates these qualities of these genetics? Have you not seen? Imagine what it would be like to be Yasser Arafat. Look at your perception. What is he doing now? Question, Laura, well, the pro-Jewish point of view is not favorable to him. Answer, well, what you have described as pro-anything is an obsession. And as we know, obsession blocks knowledge, which in turn blocks the ability to protect oneself against negative occurrences. Not a good idea. If you were following circumstances, Yasser Arafat is now trying to take the world upon his shoulders by making peace with the Israelis, who have been enemies for a very long time. And therefore, he is now a peacemaker and knowledge dispenser. In a particular conflict between the Jews and the Arabs, which side has the greatest validity? All sides have equal validity. It is only with individuals we find negative or positivity. In this discussion of a purported crash of a spacecraft in Roswell, it was remarked that this crash was caused by ionization. Could you be more specific? That reference simply means the bouncing of what you call radar beams off the ions existing in the atmosphere at the time caused electromagnetic disturbances which interfered the gravitational balancing system of this particular craft. Answer, Laura. Why were the ions present at the time and not at the other times? Answer, the ions were charged at that time because of storm activity. Laura, you said that there were bodies recovered by the government. How many bodies were recovered? 3 dead and 1 still in operation. How long did that one live? Answer, remained in operation for approximately 3.5 years. It was a robotic biogenetic being rather than a soul encompassing a physical existence. Question, Laura, did the government know it was a robotic being? Answer, no. Question, Laura, do they still think it was a living being? Answer, the government is not one individual. Some are now aware that these are biogenetic engineered beings. Question, Laura, in another transmission, we were told that we would receive information from a higher... Let's do that again. Question, Laura. In another transmission, we were told that we would receive information from a different being each time of contact in order to get good information. Why is that? Answer, to make sure that balance and equilibrium is maintained, and also information sources are fresh in the interaction between the giver and the receiver. Well, that's it for tonight. Thank you. Good night. Good night. End of session. Very, very, very interesting, guys. What did y'all think about that? I actually really like Frank. I know Laura and Frank, there was a lot of ego, I think, between them. but I've discussed Frank a lot with my boyfriend, and I feel like Frank, from what I read, experienced a lot of spiritual attacks from the time he was a child. And so he had a kind of a jaded perspective. But a lot of what he said in that channeling section, I didn't see the negative things they were talking about or the distressing things. I didn't see any of that. Like, to me, that made perfect sense. And he does very much talk about things that are in the law of one. So let me know your thoughts. Next episode, we're going to go into basically part 2 and look at the man in the iron mask. But I needed to get that done first, so part of the next reading would make sense to you. All right, you guys, have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you all very soon.